Welcome to Math 105, where we're talking about Lab 1, Simple Interest. So if this is your first time on an Excel, definitely try to be as curious as you can. So it's because I'm not in a classroom face-to-face, you might have questions and I might not be able to immediately respond to you. So definitely go on to Google and do a quick Google search. And if it's something a little bit more intensive, we can certainly go on a Zoom call and figure out what the issue is. Now, that being said, if you do not have access to an Excel, make sure that you go to the Citadel. Their IT has a link for you guys to download for free. That comes as a part of your tuition. In addition to that, make sure you're using the Excel app and not through a browser. So sometimes the application through the browser doesn't always have the necessary things that we need. So we're going to be starting with a title page to just label everything on your sheet. Now you can see I'm pretty zoomed in. All I did is just do this plus bar to kind of just make it pretty big because I have a hard time looking at screens. So it says, in this lab, some basic algebra and graphic skills. You will enter formulas and create text boxes, use the solver and create a graph. In part 1, you will create a cover page to use for your labs, which you can copy repeatedly anytime that we go to do a lab. Part 2, you will build a sample spreadsheet and use a text box. Goal-Seek will be used in part 3, and in part 4, you'll build a graph yourself. So it's just a very foundational experience to Excel. Now, as we go on, we're going to get more intense with the Excel stuff. So part 1, create a title page. So it says move your cursor to C18 and type. So C18 being down here. And it doesn't exactly need to be in C18. You can pretty much do anything you want with your Excel title page. But we definitely need to have something that says the name of the lab. So lab assignment number 1, and then probably something that says this one is the simple interest lab. So anything along those lines that say just the name of the lab. The name is usually found at the very beginning right here. And it says in cell C20, enter finite math or mathematics. And then in the next row, so C22, add your first and last name. And then we can just go 2 more down and put the date. So depending on the date, today is 4/22/2024. Whenever you're creating this lab, just have that date in mind, okay? Now, a couple of things that you can do, we can certainly put, or we can certainly try to highlight this figure. So highlighting is pretty key. It will allow us to perhaps put in a border. Maybe I want a thick outside border. Maybe I want to change this to be Times New Romans. Perhaps a font 12. It also allows us to increase our margins here. Doesn't really have to be necessary. We could also highlight, color, you name it. Perhaps I highlight this in a certain color. Maybe I want green, right? Notice that this little lab part here is a little on the cutoff side, so I can always increase. I can always merge and center. You name it, we can do it. So I'm going to be labeling this as the title page, so that when I go back to refer, I can actually clearly see which page is going to contain what information. So definitely see if you can make it look nice. Some students put in pictures. The nicer and more professional looking, the better. And we're going to open up a new sheet and call this problem 1. And I'm going to zoom in for my purposes. Scroll up. So make sure you are saving as you go. A lot of students each semester forget to save, and then they lose their work, and that they have to start over. So in problem 1, we're going to create this spreadsheet. So it says, in this part, you're to use a basic arithmetic operation. So adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing, and etc. to build 2 spreadsheet models. Start with a new worksheet. So we're in a new sheet. Note, review the order of operations using parentheses liberally. So all that is saying is Excel is a calculator. Don't pop your equations into your calculator. I want it to be all done by Excel. I do take off points if you put in the correct answer, but without using Excel. So I need all of this done in Excel. All right, so we have problem A, and we're going to be following the template that you see over here. I don't know if it'll let me highlight. There you go. So it says $4,000 was borrowed for 1 month at an annual simple interest rate of 6%. How much interest is to be paid and how much is owed after 1 month? And they have the template below. So it says in A1, we're going to type in bold, problem 1. Now, you might want to consider following the template. So things that are in bold, again, you don't have to stick with it completely. I might like to center, make it look nice. I'm a huge fan of Times New Romans. I'm going to hit Times New Romans 12. And notice that it's getting a little bit cut off. And I do take off points if your cells are cut off. So noticing where it looks like a little black T, I want to double click, or I can drag manually. So double click, it will do it for you. If you do it yourself, you can just drag and drop. So then in part A, we have A here, and I don't know why that didn't, come on, Times New Romans, there we go. I want it to be bold, and then it says PV here for present value, rate, time, oops, and you have INT, your interest, and FV for future value. So then they did tell us we borrowed $4,000. So we have 4,000. Now I want to make sure that this is a monetary value. So instead of typing in the dollar symbol, let's actually change this to have a currency or accounting. And just like that, it actually makes it look very presentable. So the rate they tell us is 6% simple interest. So we have 0.06, oops, 0.06, there we go. And then it says, let's see, for 1 month at an annual simple interest rate. So we now have 1 month, but we are talking about an annual interest rate. So that's why you're seeing here in time where it says equals the 1 month divided by the 12 in total, because you're clashing with your rate in your time. Now we don't need all of those decimal places. So we're going to go underneath that general, and notice that when I hover, it'll tell me that this one is the one to decrease. So I might only need 4 decimal places here. I do take off points if it doesn't look very professional. So if you have something that's very drawn out, about 4 should be the most decimal places you should do. If we're talking about currency, 2 is enough. Rate can be between 2 to 4. Now your interest has the following formula. Keep in mind interest that we had learned from before, we said is really your present value times your rate times your time. So instead of putting that into your calculator, Excel is going to have us do it for you. Now, each time you want to put in a formula, we're going to have equals, and then we're going to punch in your cell. We're going to type, or not we're type, we're going to select the cell, or you can type in B4, which contains your present value. Times is your little asterisk. Click the next cell, or you can type it times, and then the final time. Go ahead and hit enter, and there you have $20 for your interest rate. Now we're going to move down. Now again, you see a lot of decimal places. We don't need that many. We just need 2 decimal places showing. So then we can go to your future value, where in your future value it says equals. And your future value is equal to your present value plus your interest. And again, you can either type or you can select or you can type in the cell. What I don't want to see is 4,000 plus 20. I don't need that because when you go to make any sort of small adjustment, it will not end up changing the whole problem, which we need it to. So this is our template that we have here. Now I do like to make a note that these are the ones that I'm going to be looking for. So I like putting things in highlight to draw my attention that this is where my answer is contained. Now it says note the cell B6, 1 month is represented. Oh, we already talked about that, so I can kind of skip down. Feel free to read as you go. Now it says now answer the following questions. So we're going to insert a text box. Now yours might already like show it. It's just mine is kind of condensed and all I did was insert, go down to text box, and then we're going to make a little text box. You can draw it out. Some students like to merge and center, which if you want to merge and center, you just click home, highlight the cells that you want to merge, hit merge and center, and then to make sure you text wrap. I definitely want to discourage you from doing that because a lot of students get their information cut off. It's not as easy to move if you go to print and you realize that part of it is cut off. Now I am a fan of Times New Romans. I want to make sure that that looks nice. Now we are going to be answering the following. Again, it's just right here. We're going to be answering some of these. I'm just going to highlight some of these things. So it says part A, or it says I state the amount of interest and the amount to be repaid for the loan. So using what we just found out, please state it as an answer. Use college level sentences. So tell me all of this, what it means and how it gets you to your answer. That's what I mean by college level sentences. Oh. All right, then it says, starting in column C3, copy B, but change the terms of the loan. So we're going to copy all of this into your next cells in B. Now notice that this comes up with number, or pound, pound, pound. It just says that there's not enough room given. So we're just going to give a little bit of room. So whether you double click as you saw me, or I can move my margins. Then it said we're going to change the terms of the loan. So instead of 1 month, we're going to do 3 months. So let's change this one to a 3. Go ahead and hit enter. And notice that it'll change. It will not change if you ended up typing in, as we did here or here, just the numbers themselves. It needs to reflect the numbers or the cells that are changing. Now I do ask that students submit their Excel sheet so that I can verify that these numbers are in fact correct and not typed. So in B, again, state the amount of interest and the amount to be repaid for the loan. All right, we're going to do it one more time. Copy, paste, double click. Now copy, paste, depending on your computer, you're just going to highlight what you need. And then you're going to hit Control C and then Control V. Now in this one, it wants us starting in column D3. We now want 18 months. So we're going to change your time to be 18. And again, notice the change. So C, state the amount of interest, the amount to be repaid for the loan. All right, So text boxes, we already just discussed. Now you can do a number of things in your text box. I want to just make sure that my text box has Times New Romans. You can change it to any sort of color. Bold, highlight. I might want to put this to say college level sentences in bold and red because I really want to hit that home. All right, let's move on to part B. Oops, problem 1, so sorry. Problem 2, goodness, problem 2. Keep making sure you're saving your work as you go. So, in part B, it says $1,500 is deposited in your savings account that pays an annual rate of 6% compounded monthly. Determine the value of the account 2.5 years, which equals 30 months. So again, we're going to be following along with the template. So up here, oh, actually, I'm so sorry. We're still on the same problem. Silly me. All right, so in 15, now notice mine has a small overlap. So I might actually move my answers to over here. Now it says problem part B. We want to put that in bold. Part B in bold here. Then he has PV, rate, compound, period, time, future value. Now compounding period will be cut off, so we can either manually double click and it'll push it, or you can text wrap if you hit enter. So now let's put in everything that has been stated. So it's telling us that $1,500 is deposited into your savings account, of which we do have that $1,500 amount. Again, let's change that to be some sort of accounting or currency. Now your rate, it does tell us it's an annual rate of 6%, so 0.06, compounded monthly. So we're going to be putting 12 in here for monthly, and then it says determine the value of the account after 2.5 years, so about 20 months. So we're going to be using, not 20, 30 months. Goodness me. Okay. Now we're going to be entering in your future value. Now note, with your future value, we're going to be using this equation over here to be right in my screen. So it says future value is equal to your present value. Again, I don't want you to type in that value. I want you to either select a cell or type B16. Now, anytime you go to do a parentheses or any sort of multiplication, you have to do the multiplication symbol, which is the asterisk. Open up a parentheses, then it says 1 plus, and then it's your R. And honestly, I would put parentheses just because sometimes your calculators in Excel doesn't read or doesn't know exactly what you want to be done. And we want to divide your rate divided by your compounding period, right? Just like we normally would in your calculators. For those that were doing Desmos on the online class, it already does this part for you. For those that are doing the TI 83 or 84, remember that fractional button, that kind of reads it for us, but here it does have a hard time understanding what we want. Now notice I closed my parentheses and it showed up as a red one and a red one. And I need to close my parentheses one more time. And I don't know if you saw that, but it put it in black. Now we have to raise it to doing the caret button by hitting Shift 6, open up a new parentheses, and we want our compounding period times your time. Close your parentheses once more and hit enter. Now, if you do make a mistake, Excel is really nice because it'll tell you what it thinks you want it to be done. So just read through, make sure that it is exactly what you would like. And if not, then you have to go back and make edits. Maybe you Google or send me an email. Now I'm going to reduce this to 2 decimal places and make this an accounting or a currency number. Again, it's some answer that I want to see clearly, so I'm going to highlight. Let's see. So that actually walks us through here. Fill the templates and older. Write your answer in a text box. Okay, so one more time, and it could be in a new text box or in this in the same one. Just say state the amount of interest. Oh no, so sorry. This one says calculate the final account balance and to give the interest bank pays to the account. Let's change this. Notice how it's cut off, so I can just move that down just a little bit. I'm going to make sure this is still Times New Romans. Now it does ask for the interest, so we're going to type in interest. Now when we go to write your interest formula, we can't have the same one up here because this is for simple interest specifically. So think about what we did in class from chapter 2.2, where we said the interest is really your future value minus your present value. We're going to put that in green. And again, that will be a part of your answer. Make sure you state as college level sentences. So tell me all of this value. Like, try to include this part in your answer as you're telling me what it is. Now let's move on to part 2. So it says we want to use goal seek tool to find the value of a variable like rate and time when the values of the other variables are given. Copy the template from the previous sheet and now a new sheet of the exams. Okay, so it's just saying, can you just copy everything? So we can either copy everything here, or you can just drag what you need. Now we only really need from A to B and down. So we're just going to copy, and it shows you what's going to be copied. And we're going to put it in the exact same spot. Now notice it has the dollar amounts, so you can manually or double click to get that expanded. Now we're going to change this to be problem 2. And notice that it is kind of cut off, so I want to double click and notice that now compounding period is no longer cut off. So here it says Joanne's annual salary increased from $25,270 to $27,311. What percentage of increase was this? So we're going to ignore this for right now. This is just going to be our first portion. So we know she started off with $25,207. So that's what her salary was, and it's going to increase. So we know that her salary increased to $27,311. Okay, you do not need to type this. This is just for me to use so that we can clearly see it. Now, we do not know what her percentage was. We do not know at what percent increase this was. However, we do know that it's an annual salary, so over the course of the year, it has changed. So we're going to get rid of what's in the time and just say 1 for 1 year. Again, we do not need any of those decimal places, so we can change it to 1 or 0.1, doesn't matter. Now, it's super important that you do have your equations in here, because if you don't have your equations in here, it's going to come up with an error. So what we're going to do, as long as we have everything the same, now we don't know what the rate is, so we can either try to get it as close as possible to this 27,311. So at 6%, it's at 26,719. So if we change this to 7, it's going to increase a little bit. Let's see, 8, a little bit more. So as we're increasing, notice that we're going to get closer to this value. Now we want to be as precise as possible. So we got 9, which tipped us over the edge. So it has to be between 0.8 and 0.9%. Now we want to be very, very specific. So if this is our best guess, we're now going to go up to the data and then the what if analysis and then to goal seek. Now it says set cell. It says, what cell do you know the information? What do you want it to, what specific value do you want it to? Well, we know that her future value cell in B9, which I've just clicked on and it's being highlighted, we know that her future value has to be a certain specific amount. So then we want to change it to the value of 27311. And we want this value to come up by changing your rate. We don't know your rate. That's going to be your unknown. So to kind of recap, when it says set cell, which cell do we know specifically has to be a certain value? What value does it have to be? What value do we not know? We're going to click OK. And then right there specifically, it has 27,311. We're going to say OK. And then it's going to come up with this number. Now notice that we said, hey, it's got to be between 0.8 and 0.9, or 8% and 9%. And now specifically, it's 8.346-ish percent. Now we do not need this many decimal places. We're going to shorten it to about 4 decimal places. And we do not need this color anymore. Well, I guess we could use this color as one of them and this one as another. So let's try it again. So see if you can now do the next part on your own. So in B2, it says, suppose $6,000 is deposited into a savings account that pays an annual rate of 6% compounded monthly. Okay, those two don't have to change. How long will it take for the value to double? So we don't know this. We don't really need this quite, right? So we do not know. We do not know how long it will take for $6,000 to double. So that's our unknown, but we do know the double of 6,000, right? So what does this future value need to be in order to double 6,000? And no, it is not 36, right? So we are going to be changing. We're going to go up to data, and I would just say pause the video, see what you can do, and then come back. We're going to go to data, what if analysis, and goal seek. It says set cell. We need your future value to double. Your future value is in B21. To what value do we need it to be? Well, in order for $6,000 to double, that would be $12,000. By changing cell, what is the cell we don't know? Well, we don't know time. We could go ahead and hit enter and hit OK. And there you go. It's going to take this amount, hit OK. Shorten it up a little bit to maybe 2 decimal places. This value is years. This value is months. Round it out. And then let's have you insert a text box as your answer. Using college level sentences. Give the number of years and months it takes for the account to double. And I like things in Times New Roman. Again, college level sentences, bring all of this information in. You don't have to do the interest rate if you don't want to, but just tell me what all of this really means, and definitely telling me how much time has passed. All right, let's do problem 3. Problem 3 is a graphing problem. Oops, too much. All right, so it says problem 3, graphing. The goal of this part is to create a graph using chart options from the insert section. Start with a new page and enter the below. Okay, so we are working with the revenue in millions at Goodwill of the Lower South Carolina since 1997. So they're telling us that this is our chart. So we have years, we have revenue, in year 1997, 1998, 1999. Now, one thing, if you want to, you can certainly go all the way down to 2003, or we can practice something fun, not fun, but something a little bit easier and quicker, is if you highlight the first 3 and then wait for that plus sign, the black plus sign to appear, which is at the bottom right of your screen. And then as you're dragging it down, it shows you what cell you're on. Now we only need to go to 2003, so it's not bad if you do type it, but we will come up with a scenario where you're going to have to do 100 different cells. So it's a useful thing. Then we're going to enter in the following: 9.8, 11.2, 12.5, 14.7, 17.1. Now I like things to be centered, so I'm going to highlight all of this and it centers it all. I might also think about putting these in bold, and I can get creative as we go too. I'm just kind of showing you some of the things we can add in. All right, so this is what our table should look like for right now. It says we walk through the steps from this. Okay, so pretty much we are going to highlight what we need and we're going to insert. Now, Excel has many different versions right now. You might see this recommended charts and it might tell you, hey, based on your information, these are the charts we recommend for you to do. Now we are going to be inserting a column chart, so you can click this one, or you can look at on here, column, or that's a histogram. Let's see. These ones are so funky. It's hard to tell with some of these now. No, none of these. There should be one that says like more charts somewhere. More statistical charts. Line column. There you go. So all I had to do in this one case is when I click charts and more, whatever chart I was looking at, I'm going to look up for column charts and it's going to be this one. So I'm going to click OK and it comes all the way up. Now, one thing I want to emphasize is we need to make sure that if I just gave you the chart, that you can actually be able to read it. Charts are really, really important to us and to give us valuable information. So revenue, I don't know what the revenue is, right? Revenue of what? Well, the revenue is in millions at Goodwill of Lower South Carolina is since 1997. So perhaps we can create a good title based on the information that we were just told. Now we do need to add some more chart elements. So if you have this little green plus sign over here, we can add quick chart elements like axis titles, data labels if we needed. Let's see, trend line, no, legend, no. Yeah, so pretty much axis titles would be the most useful. If you're not seeing this, especially for Mac users, you're going to come up here to add chart elements, and then you can add primary horizontal and primary vertical. Again, you could select it over here as well. Now, axis title, well, what do these values mean right here? 1997, 1998. So create a good title for these values. And then what do these values mean? Again, we're talking about the revenue in millions at Goodwill, South Carolina. So if this is your years, what do you think this can be? Create a good title for these values. Okay. Now you can always certainly change the colors which I always love it when my students get creative. So if you double click, and then you can do like certain fills. So I just double right clicked. You can do a whole bunch of different fills. Maybe you feel like green. You can also, let's see, you can format up here, fill a shape, that'll do it as well. Sometimes if you double click, let's see if I can do that one more time. There you go. So I can do it, especially for Mac users as well. When I double click, oh, come on. When I double click, there we go. When I double click, just I'll double left click, it'll come up with this, which we're going to be using quite often in our class, but you can fill, do certain colors with it. Maybe I change the color to not super dark people. So something like this, if I wanted to be gradient, looks cool, right? Get fun with it. Borders. Maybe I want a solid border. Maybe I change the color of the border, right? Maybe it's dashed, right? Get fun, make it look professional. The other thing I will note, okay, this graph did ask for a column chart, but I do want you guys to practice trying to get this to be a gap width of 0 to turn it into a histogram. I will be looking for this skill when you go to print these off. For those that are taking the in-person class, for those that are doing the online, I don't need you to print it off, but I will be expecting to see this. So I will do that one more time. So I'm going to reset it. I'm going to start kind of clicking around here, and then I'm going to double click. So I had to do a double left click. Sometimes you can go up to format here as well. And we're going to go from the gap width all the way down to 0. Now with this, I do want to make sure, I'm going to just kind of go back to a solid line. And I want to make sure my color is like clearly shown. My width, if you wanted to increase the border width, that's fine, but make sure it's solid so that when I do click out, I can see clearly where my end lines are. Now, for those that do need to print it off, okay, this is for you guys. I'm going to hit Control P for a second. Now, this graph thankfully is not cut off, but let's say it was. Notice that when I do that, there's this dotted line, right? If it was here, it's going to cut off my graph. So if I do that again, oh, it's because I'm actually on it. If I do that, right, it's kind of cut off. It's now on multiple pages. So always take a look at where your print area is. Oh, that's why. So I'm going to bring this in. I can also print this graph off separately by just clicking and hitting Control P, and then it prints off on a different separate page. Now I do want you guys to make sure you're able to print with the data as well. We can also change your margins. I like doing narrow margins. It just gives it a little bit extra space. You can also select the print area that you want and then hit print area and then set the print area. For problem 2, I definitely want to take a look, make sure nothing is being cut off. So I'm going to hit Control P. It looks good on my screen, so I don't feel like I need to adjust anything. But then notice it does cut off this double word. Now, I don't really need this double to be in there because it's not really a part of our presentation. But again, if I just narrow it, notice that it looks like it is fully there. But again, I don't really need this stuff right here, so I can just delete it if needed. This one, Control P. Oh, I can definitely see that this is going to get cut off. So I can either put it on the very next page here, or I can bring it down right here. We can also try, oops, not size. We can also try this as a landscape option as well, so that I can put it anywhere and it's going to print out the long way instead of the up and down way. Same thing with here, just want to make sure everything looks nice. It's not centered for me, which I'm not a huge fan of, but I won't nitpick for this one. Now, when you do go to print off for PDF users, when I hit Control P, I want to switch from active sheets, which is only going to give me this sheet. I'm going to print the entire workbook. So when I then can click through, there we go. Sorry, it was a little fast for my computer. There you go. It'll give me all of the pages that I've now have worked on. Now they're all in there. They all look really good. They can all have narrow margins. If I wanted to print certain pages, I can. Now I can also export this to a PDF. Now, if I do that, I definitely, again, want to make sure that I click so I'll start over. I title it, I click options, and I click again the entire workbook and click OK. And then we're going to title this as Simple Interest Grab, and then your name. And I'll just save it to the desktop. Publishing. Oh, where is it going to go? And there you see it. Notice that this one looks kind of funky. That's the one where we printed it off long ways. You don't have to do that as long as it's not cut off. This is just showing you some of your options. Now, for those that are doing online, you don't have to print it off for me, but it is still useful to understand how to do that going forward.